Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Penny Lane Podcast with Ellis Dillinger. We actually recorded this early last week, but it's so timely. Starting on Thursday, October 21st through Friday, DWAC ran around 1,600%. And then on Friday the 22nd, Fun, PHUN, ran around 2,100%, which reignited the sympathy market. Ellis is an expert on sympathy plays, so this is a must-listen episode. He's also just so much fun, and I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with him. Enjoy! Ellis, hi. Welcome to the Penny Lane Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. I'm very excited to be here. I admitted on Twitter that I am a super fan.
Really?
Yeah.
My first question was going to be, have you ever listened to the podcast before?
Yes. So Singles and Doubles, obviously the best podcast of all time. And then like I think that really started making you guys kind of known like in the Fintuit space. And then from there, I always tune in. I would say top 3 episodes. Obviously, mine's going to be number 1. Okay.
Sure.
Singles and Doubles. And I like the ESQ and Ariel one. I thought that was an interesting dynamic.
After we get off, it's Monday when we're recording this. After we get off, I'm dropping Ariel solo.
Oh, that's going to be good. Ariel's actually a really good friend of mine.
He is a badass. Like, such a badass. And he has been so personally helpful to me. Like, he has spent hours on the phone with me, not just like chatting in Discord, like on the phone, running me through like, this is what I do. This is what I look for. And he's so calming. I'm a big fan of Ariel. Very big.
Yeah, that's his thing. Yeah, he loves calling people, checking in on them. I swear that's what he does all day as he has like millions of dollars worth of shares. He'll just like call you on Discord and be like, hey man, like, how's your trading going? I'm like, dude, how do you do this? He's actually the one that taught me like a lot about Momo. So I don't really trade Momo as much. And like I do, but it's just not really my style. But he's the one that kind of taught me playing like the ranges on the 1 hour, what he looks for. He just plays he basically plays the same setups I do, but just on a smaller time frame. And he makes the candles he wants to see. So
I know. Like that's my like goal in life.
He's just a solid all around guy. He genuinely lives the lifestyle. Like all he wants to do is teach and have people be just like him. And that's what I aspire to be. Like that's how I got on Twitter. It all started because my buddies from college were like, "Hey man, like you trade now. Like what are your plays?" And I was in like 30 different group chats on my phone with like 500 messages in each one. And I was like, I'm just gonna make a Twitter. You can turn on alerts and you can ask me questions on there. And then it slowly went from like 20 followers to like 100, and then started scaling up. And now I'm known as like an options like guru. Someone on Twitter called me cutthroat the other day.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I'm cutthroat. I'm just not very much. I'm not a BS type of person. If it affects my pockets, like I'm just not going to get involved.
Now,
I trade stocks.
Did you listen to the Shark episode?
Shark. You're talking about like the oh my god, his Shark Trader on Twitter, right?
Right.
So funny story. Me and him. He's actually one of the very first people I met when it came to trading options. So I did not get a chance to listen to it.
Okay, so it was very recent, so no judgment. I'm sure you'll cue it up right after you get off this episode.
Of course.
He came on the podcast, and Justin, my co-host, who's not here right now, no problem. He's our options guy, so I really freaked out before the Shark episode and was like, I'm gonna look like an idiot. Like I don't understand well enough what to ask him, and you may be thinking like, oh great, this is gonna really suck, but he is such a like wonderful person to talk to that we ended up having like a fantastic conversation. And I think it was great because I'm sure anytime he ever talks to anyone else, they're like pounding him about like details about options, but his whole philosophy is just fascinating.
Yeah, very simple, very, very simple.
Yeah.
I met him. So I'll give you a background on kind of like my journey. So I started off in Sapphire trading in end of 2019, back when like there like people weren't even like alerting plays. Like there was like 1,000 of us. And
actually, I already have a question.
Go on.
So I started in Atlas, and by the time I started, it was in 2020, like summer 2020. It was so big that I was like so stage fright to say anything. So I just watched. And then ultimately, I just am not the personality that could be in Atlas. Atlas is like a state school, and I needed like a small private college.
Yep. It's very, very similar. I
Yes.
understand that very much.
So how did you like get in? You're saying it was only 1,000 people, but like, how did you build up to sort of your role today? And maybe you were about to say that, but I'm so interested in that. Like, people who have big roles and big discords is impressive to me.
So I wouldn't say, maybe it wasn't 1,000, but there was like 3 color names. It was like Ultra, Stock Authority, and King Bio when I joined. And I remember because I worked at my school. I was an accounting tutor when I first started. So I'd be with my Robinhood and like my Discord up, like in between students coming in. And I just started talking, right? Like I always ask questions, and I'm very much a go-getter. Like I started under PDT, like all that. I had like $50 in my Robinhood, and I forget what the play was. Oh, and then so I went on Reddit. That's how I found Sapphire, and then Rob Trade's room, and I was just kind of bouncing back and forth, and asking questions, and like messing around, like a lot of the new guys do. And I can talk about my first big play too. So I'm in Rob's room. It's like 2 weeks in, and I buy this penny stock called GNPX, right? I like 20 cents a share. And like I researched it. I was all about it. My Robinhood green line was going up. I told my friends to buy it. I told my parents to buy it.
Wait, your Robinhood green line. God, what a flashback.
Yep. Like, it was going up. We're going to the moon. Like, yes. So like literally everyone bought it. And like, that was like my first penny stock trade. And it actually went from 30 cents to $5 in like 2 weeks. It was insane. And then that's kind of how the whole penny stock thing started. That was kind of like my first like itch. And then I noticed in Sapphire that we had an options room, right? And it was dead at the time. Like there was literally no one would talk in there. And I was like, I think there was maybe one other person that would post. He's not active anymore. And like we would just kind of like talk charts. We always traded like ETFs like SPY, silver, energy, like those kind of stuff. And I started posting my watch list in there, like a notepad for my iPhone, right?
Yep.
And after a while, I got a message from another mod saying like, "Hey, like do you know who Gixter Stunnin is?"
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So he had a room called Traders Evolved, I think it was. So I got it.
Amazing.
Yeah, he trades off his iPad. So funny enough, he's the one that taught me how to chart. So I got invited to his room. It was myself, Sam, Gixter, Shark, Mitch Picks was in there. Who else was in there? There was a bunch of us, right?
Wait, this is a lineup.
Yeah. So that's like the server. That was like my hiding place. And every Sunday, Gixter would do a Zoom session with him and Blue. I think it's Blue Trades. So when I was like a real newbie, like not knowing what I was doing, just slapping penny stocks and somehow making money, on Sundays he would do like a 2-hour Zoom session. He would go over charting, and I would always attend it, and I would invite my buddies to join it too. And that's kind of how I got my start in charting. And I was always an options guy, right? Because I had a small account at the time, so me scalping $500 worth of a penny stock making $10 is going to do nothing for me. But me making 50 to 100% on a small account, a small investment, it adds up. So that's kind of how I got my start, and that's how I met.
Isn't I told you I'm not good at options, but isn't the opposite side of that?
Oh yeah,
scary?
oh yeah. Dude, okay. I blew up my account so bad. Like I think it was 2 years ago. Like 6 weeks ago, like in September range, I blew up my account. I bought like $5,000 worth of BA weeklies that expired the next day, and they went to zero the following morning.
Oh, that's my main play. Just let something go to zero.
Yeah, but now I don't do that. Now I have a whole system. But that's kind of my humble beginnings, right? So that's how I met. Like Mitch Picks is probably my biggest mentor. Like we literally talk every day. Like we say good morning to each other. He's just so he taught me how to swing
Well,
pennies. Like
as
he
you
looks.
know, since I told you this morning, I love him. I've
Yeah.
always loved him. I've loved him since my beginning, like in Atlas. I just think that guy is calm and thoughtful and smart. I really like him.
We're both accountants too, so we have very similar wired brains.
You know what's interesting is so many people are engineers. I've probably interviewed 15 engineers. This
Yep.
is my first accountant. So
oh, there you go. You're gonna have a
welcome.
People always think accounting like gives me an edge, but it really doesn't. It's that whole analytical side of your brain, right? It's that whole not having emotions. And that's what I learned in Gix's room through Mitch was like, he just taught me like, hey man, like you take an L, you'll bounce back, right? Like don't, all in your account in the next play because it's not smart. You're going to make it back. You just got to follow the process. And then I was in there and then they went like paid or something. And then I was like, I'm a poor college kid. Like I can't afford this. And then I just kind of started learning on my own from watching YouTube videos because people always think like you can copy someone's system and you're instantly going to be profitable, right? That's not necessarily the case. I mean, I use everything I've learned from talking to people, I build into my own little system. And now I'm the options guy. And I do trade penny stocks. I mean, today most of my money was from penny stocks.
Which one?
KAVL. I loaded an absolute boatload of shares on Friday. We're a little liquored up, so,
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's the best way.
And I also I'm in a Discord with there's 10 of us, and it's all people who've been trading full time who don't even have social media, right? So they just play the chart and their scanner. So when we're talking, hey, this person alerted this, they don't even know what we're talking about. So one of my buddies gave me that, and then it went after hours today. Nice little 30% ripper, and now we're hanging out.
Nice.
Penny stocks are weird though. I don't know. People love them, but I like options just because the options family on FinTwit is much tighter. We all know each other, right? We all play the same setups. We all know what it's like to lose literally everything because of a tweet from a politician. The market tanks,
Yeah.
We know the pain and suffering, so it's much more tight knit, and it's just a friendlier vibe. I think the options community is the best because we don't necessarily say oh, we called this first, etc. So,
what about Squeezy, my main man, Squeezy?
I think I follow him on Twitter, but I haven't really looked at what he does. I use Twitter almost as a scanner, right? What charts people are looking at. For example, Microsoft today. I had alerts on this thing break all-time highs for a week ago. So I don't really necessarily need to go on someone else's page to see what they're looking at. Sometimes it's nice. I do look at people when they post SPY charts because SPY is my number one loss on my account. I'm not a profitable SPY trader at all. I just can't do it. I always size too big and it breaks. So.
Yeah, well, that's a very human trader story. We all have that. Mine is Pixie. It was
Pixie's the worst.
I cried. Absolutely horrific. So, I no longer trade Pixie. I don't care if it's, the new Kodak. I will never.
Yeah, I have a whole list of do not trades. Oh man. But that's good that there's also a lot of stocks that play over and over and over again that just know that work. I've been playing Ford for over a month now. It literally has paid me every single day. I've rolled up every 50-cent strike since 15. I think I had 14
you mean Ford FORD, not F?
No, right? F, the boomer stock.
Nice.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, I love F. I really, really like that stock. I watched a lot. And I want a Bronco. So if you could teach me how to trade Ford options to make enough money to buy a Bronco, then we could be friends IRL.
There you go. Well, the cool thing about Ford is you can buy 6 weeks at a time close to the money, and it's only 25 cents a contract, right?
Right.
So I always like to tweet plays or alert plays that are under a dollar or $100 a contract, because I've traded the $1,000 contracts and it's just a little stressful, you know? It's just, so I like these. You get a lot of time. They're cheap, and it's going through a weekly breakout right now. You have Tesla's earnings on Thursday. Ford's an EV company now. I don't know if people have
I had
comprehended
no
that yet.
idea.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about it,
Like,
right?
$1,000 a contract, I would have like the worst heartburn. I would just be like scarfing Tums over and over. I couldn't like live. I don't know
But that's options. I mean, I've had so many plays where like I thought they were dead, and I was like, I'm gonna overnight it and wake up and they're up 500%. Like I played the bonds, and I bought like 10 $30 contracts, and they were worth $10,000 in like 2 weeks. It was insane.
You have to have balls to do that. Like,
Yeah,
figuratively, possibly literally. I don't know. I just like, that seems a little bit scary to me, but I'm working on it. I am working on it. I joined Shark's room after his episode, and I was like, if I could learn options from anyone, I think I could learn from him. And I understand the basics, but man, is it scary. But also, day trading penny stocks is freaking scary. So,
Yeah.
I
love
have to be kind of a
penny
badass
stocks
to do that
with options. That is my bread and butter when it comes to day
So,
trading.
so I joined Shark's room today, and then I day traded options on FCEL.
Yep.
I mean, that's freaking badass too.
But that's the thing, right? You could say you have 1,000 shares of FCL and it goes up 2%. Ooh. Or you can buy a couple $100 worth of contracts. You're going to make 25, 50%. Right? It's all risk reward. Yeah, you could also lose 100% of the contract, but it just, for me, when I see 50%, I get more tingles than if I make 5%. That's just how I am.
Yeah.
It's very much gambly. Like, I know a lot of young guys and people, like, dude, I see kids like yeet their entire Robinhood in like Affirm calls. They're like, we're going to the moon. I'm like, I have very specific rules on how many contracts I buy, how much time, the price. Like today, I was actually talking to one of my good buddies. I call him a mentee because, like, I have a bunch of mentees that I kind of teach and grow so they can become.
I like that.
Yeah, that was what was taught to me when I first started, right? Like, hey, I'll teach you, but now you have to go teach someone else.
Yeah.
They just don't understand risk management because they go on Wall Street bets and they see some guy just put his life savings on something and make $1 million, but they fail to realize that, like, you can also lose everything. And I heard on your one podcast that you've never blown up an account before, so I was a little that's surprising. I always say you're not a real trader unless you've blown through at least 1 or 2 accounts.
That's what Shark said too. He's like, I think it was Shark. Like, I don't trust people if they haven't blown up an account. Somebody just said that too.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, if you haven't blown up an account, you haven't really traded, right? Unless you have really, really good mentors and you're very disciplined. Me, I'm disciplined now, but when I first started, probably 0 to none. I just wanted big gains and Lambos. I didn't really care about anything else. I didn't use a bar chart. Like, I just used a line. I'm like, oh, it's going up. Cool. All in. Like,
I'm like very, very cautious. And if I had not reloaded this account like 6 times, I would have blown it up. So there is an asterisk.
Okay.
Like, I started at PDT, but have had to like re-add to stay over PDT like 6 or 7 times. So, I'm not perfect. It never went to 0.
Okay. That's fine. See, for me, my account went down 99.9%. Like, and PDT, like, people are so like fixated on PDT. Like, a little fun fact is, like, my account's over PDT, but I still use a cash account, right?
Yeah.
People are like, oh, why do you do that? I'm like, oh, so I don't take stupid, ignorant size when I shouldn't have to, right? I follow my rules.
Also, we should tell our listeners who are like me and maybe don't know options that if you're trading options in a cash account, your cash settles the next day. Fun fact.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest benefit, especially with small account trading options, is you get your money back the next day. So say you have $1,000 account, you you trade $1,000 worth of options by 9:30 in the next morning, you have all that cash back.
Yep.
So it's very easy. And if you also make a mistake, you can just cut it for a really small loss and you can re-enter it, right? Because contracts, depending on which ones you buy, really aren't that expensive. You get a couple more stabs at it rather than a penny stock, or you either make 5-10% on a day trade where you lose it and that's all your cash for the day.
Yeah. That was really, really hard for me. Like, that's why I just kept putting in cash to stay above PDT, because I don't know. I didn't want to make one bad trade and not be able to re-enter. Just wasn't
Fair
for
enough.
me. So,
but do you have a long-term investing account though?
Not really. I mean,
oh, don't tell me that. That's like the number one thing, dude. That's like we were missing out. So my rule is I always have 90% of my, we'll say, net worth in assets, and the 10% is trading account. It will never ever change.
That's why you're going to be a multimillionaire by the time you're my age, and I'm here scalping freaking penny stocks for $200.
But you got to remember, right? Like, we had that correction in beginning of fall, right? Like, why would I not buy a bunch of leaps, a bunch of shares? Like, why would I not? I bought AMD under $100, and I'm up $17 a share. And know what I did? I did nothing except click buy. Like, it's free money. Just people want these big gains now. They don't want to build wealth, right? So I used to.
You're also 25, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's very smart. If I could go back in time.
Well, I used to work for a bank, so I worked in investment banking.
Yeah. I mean,
if one of my clients came to me, well, I was an auditor, so not necessarily dealing with clients, but if you came to my bank and you showed me your Webull profit and loss statement, I would go, oh, that's cool, but where's the assets? Like, if you can't pay me back, am I going to bet on your ability to day trade? Like, no, not going to happen.
Yeah.
I always stress that.
That makes sense.
I try to teach people. People don't want to listen. I mean, and then they come to me and go, hey, I think I'm ready for long-term investing. I'm like, oh, after you already, one time I had this guy DM me. I always remember this story. He had like $500,000 in his Thinkorswim, right? And he's just buying like pumps, like the absolute top apex. And he's down like 170K. And he's like, oh, I need to put my kids through college. Like, this is their college fund. And I literally called him on Discord. I was like, what were you thinking? I mean, like I do a lot of dumb stuff, right? But like, you're a grown adult. You're in your 50s. Like, your kids are about to go to school. Why would you try to triple it off of like Twitter alerts? Like, like, I didn't. And he's like, I'll pay you to manage my account. I'm like, I don't want. No. And like, we laugh, but like, that's the sad part is like, that's what the kind of FinTwit world has made people believe is actually true, right? You hear the statistics, how like 90% of people fail. I
started this journey with Tim Sykes, so I've heard that statistic.
Good old Tim Sykes, dude. SEC man. But again, that's another thing, like the whole courses and everything. Like, dude, if you DM like any moderator of any Discord, they'll drop you a Google Drive that has like 500 gigabytes of every course known to mankind. And you can read as much as you want. Me, I can't read.
Sure. It's a hard skill.
Yeah, like my English teachers hated me, so I just watched YouTube videos, and that's how I learned. So I would have two screens. I'd have the YouTube video up with the same chart that the person that's teaching does, and I would practice all the lines myself and see how the levels react, and go on Thinkorswim on demand and watch the price action and see if I was right, see if I was wrong. Like, that's what you have to do. But people don't want to necessarily like put that work in.
I mean, I've struggled with that too. I think that there's a I don't know. There's like a desire to have it spoon fed to you, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, I'll just join this Discord and buy this person's call, and then I'm going to be rich. Like, that sounds easy. And then you have to learn how to do it. And you're like, oh God, this is like, I got to go back to school.
Yep. It is like a whole nother school. Now, do you keep a trading journal?
I have a Discord.
Okay. Yeah, that's the same thing. So I every night I journal every single one of my trades. Every single night when I'm done work and like It's like 9, 10 o'clock at night when everyone's about to go to bed. I'm up with my screens, journaling everything I did. Like, hey, where could I have work? My entry could have been better here. My exit could have been better here. I'm always like my worst critic.
Right.
And it's important. I mean, that's what you have to do because you're not going to realize your mistakes by looking at like the trades you made for the week, right? You can be like, oh, you could have held this longer, yada, yada, yada. Next time, I'm just going to hold this call till Valhalla and I'm going to be rich. Like, this doesn't line up.
I interviewed singles and doubles. I heard him, but still, like, making rules, figuring out those rules, following those rules, holding yourself accountable for following the rules, doing your trades, reviewing your trades, seeing where you could have been better. Like, that's all on the individual trader, and it's a lot of work.
It is.
That it's not Lambos and Rolexes, it's just like you and that computer grinding. And it's the not sexy side of trading.
I did post my rules on my Twitter.
You want to go through them?
Yeah, I actually want to pull them up. I think I want to actually explain them kind of in detail.
Okay.
Just because they're not traditional rules, right? So.
Well, I haven't heard them. I probably should have, as podcast research. But
there you go. So I have 11 here, right? So the first one is people talk about popular stocks for followers, especially ones that a lot of, we'll call them followees, are getting bagged on, right? So people only want to hear what they want to hear, right? It's confirmation bias. So let's talk an example. We can talk about CEI, right?
Oh, okay.
Everyone on Twitter is like blasting CEI, like this is bottom. Actually, let's talk about Wish. It's like this is bottom. Like it's confirmation bias, right? And this plays into my second and third rule, right? If everyone is talking about your stock that you're in, you should be selling, because the way I trade, right, is I don't trade noise. I trade just a chart, and when the volume comes in, I sell. I'm gone before the chasers even show up. And that's just how I trade, and that's how I've been able to be consistent, right? If everyone on Twitter is talking about the stock I'm in, that means there's more shorts. There's going to be, now they have social media algos, right, that are on big traders' names. I used to work in investment banking. Like, this is real stuff. Like, and they just manipulate the price and everything like that. Like, I don't want to trade like that. I like a clean trade, in and out, collect my money, and go buy Lambos.
Sure.
Right? So then number 3, right? If the trend is up, play up. If the trend is down, play down. Wish, classic example.
I like that rule a lot.
Like,
yeah,
it keeps going down. You're not going to ever time the bottom or time the top. You just have to kind of accept that, right? You can scale on the way out. I always leave lottos in every trade, like a couple hundred shares, just to see if we go to the moon or not.
Well, it's possible. It's always possible.
But if you're really getting bagged, right, and like you're just in a trade, you're down like 50%, it's opportunity cost, right? So let's say you have $1,000 in that trade, your initial investment, now it's only worth $500. You have to ask yourself, could that money be better spent on another play, right?
Right.
If I'm down, let's say I'm down 20%, I cut it, okay, $800 left. That's like two or three plays to make back the losses I made. That's it. And then you're back on the roll, back on the ball. But now you have these guys who are at 4 a.m., right, at 4:01 a.m. when Webull opens saying oversold, and it gets a pop, and you see the ass coming down, and they're just dumping on people, right? Like, I don't like that. That's dirty. That's not how I do things.
So can I want to come back to rules, but or we could talk about it later. I would really like to know how you like scan and or find your plays to be in before everyone's in them.
So I trade based on themes. We actually had someone ask me about on when you tweeted, ask me like how I find plays before they set up, right? And my favorite one to use is oil stocks. I hate oilers, but I love them at the same time. So I looked at CL, which is the futures for the oil stocks, right? And I'm already loaded in large caps. And the cool thing about penny stocks is there's always like a couple day delay before the algos kick on to the small cap, like oil stocks. So you see that CL oil futures are breaking a multi-year high, okay? And so I go on FinViz, I go to sector, and I click oiler, and I find ones that are bottom out, slowly have increasing volume, which shows accumulation, meaning the whales are coming in, they're locking the float, like there's some algo and some hedge fund's going to send it soon. So that's how I do it. Then we had the clean energy stuff, we had infrastructure bill going on, Now we have HX, which is a China finance company. It's very similar to Arcon, RCON, and MOXC. It's just it's almost like that someone overseas just keeps pumping up the bid, and shorts are just getting crushed, and no one knows why. It's just some weird. It happened the same thing with those two stocks I mentioned previously. So I'll go on FinViz. I'll go to financials. I'll click on China names, and I'll look at the financial stocks, the China financials. I like stocks that have at least 100K volume, just so I don't really get stuck in them. Right now, I'm swinging XYF and LYL. They're both China financials. LYL also has a crypto angle. I also see if it's a former runner, right? You always want a stock that had one day in the past year go like 5 million%, because you know that everyone's going to look left and they're going to see that.
Right. Totally.
So I just play the themes. Like we have clean energy. EVs are starting to heat up. Very common around Tesla earnings. EVs will start to pick up. And also, all EVs had a run this time last year, and you'll be surprised. So I keep a calendar, which you probably have seen it. The one that
Mitch has a calendar, right? Yep. A very famous calendar.
Very famous, and I have that same one, but I add my own things, right? Like in the summertime, it's a lot of these new IPOs that come out because they're low float. They go insane. These same trends happen all the time. So I look at my calendar, I look at FinViz or my scanner, and I just narrow it down because I have my notes from the previous year.
Right.
It's not. It sounds really simple, but I've been trading penny stocks now for almost 2.5 years. So like, I just kind of know. Like I've seen the same names get recycled over and over and over again. They run them, they dilute till nothing, and then 6 months later they start running again. And instead of a Bitcoin name, they're now clean energy, which
sure,
yeah,
sure. Of course.
But that's just the name of the game. So a good person I like to talk to is my buddy Barn Animal. He's like my best friend in the trading space. He's really good at like understanding the story of the ticker, right? He doesn't like, he likes charts. He's good at he's an A+ charter, but he really likes his story. So he dives into the filings. So I'll send him a message, be like, hey, what does this company do? And he'll rat off like 3 things. I'll look at what's currently running. Does it fit the theme? Yeah, then you're good.
Fascinating. I don't do that at all.
You don't use FinViz?
No.
Oh, you got to use FinViz. Yeah, that's FinViz is free. You can sort by sector, and it's all about the sympathy plays, right? When they used to be hot.
Well, that's what Ariel told me. Like we talked, I'm listening back to his episode today. We talked 25 minutes on sympathy plays.
Yeah, he made like $500,000 on sympathy plays.
I know. I got so burned on sympathy plays when I was in Atlas. I think I might just be, I don't know, have like a thing against them. I'm just looking at like the top gainer. I look at so many charts, mostly the top gainers with the volume, but I don't know. I got so burned on that.
Yeah, they're easy to get burned on. So what you have to do is you have to size in accordingly, right? So I always call it like a starter, which is like 10% of say my day trade side or my swing trade size, and I'll just slap it and like poke it a little bit, see if it moves, watch the tape, or other people touching it. So you don't want to just XYZ is running, so we want to slap ABC. Like you don't want to do that. You gotta mess around with it a little bit.
Okay, so you're using FinViz and you're a sector trader and you're looking for charts that are bottomed out. And then when you find a bottomed out chart in the sector that you like, you're taking a starter. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm always taking a starter, right? You never just find a play you like and slap your whole position size. There used to be a rule when I first started. It was first you go in with 20%, then it was like 40%, and then another 40%. That's kind of how you scale in on like certain confirmation levels. But I do more like a 30, 40, like 20 split. Does that math add up? No, doesn't add up.
I'm not a math person, so I have to take your word for it.
I'm a math guy, and like that doesn't make much sense. But yeah, so you always want to take like 10, 20% just to see how the stock reacts, right? Like I see so many people just like, oh, this is a swing, all in. Like, no.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I find a bottom out chart. I also check the sector tracker for like the large caps, right? So like I know like today was a very strong NASDAQ day, which means like all the high growth names are going to be ripping and everything. Like they're just going to go crazy. Like we traded Square today, Apple, AMD, NVIDIA. Like that's all QQQ NASDAQ, right?
Uh-huh.
And you'll notice that value stocks have been taking a hit, right? Like Ford, they're not like super red. They're down less than 1%, but just all about their rotation. And so every morning I wake up, I check all the ETFs. I check the financials, the energy, the value. I'm trying to think of all the names there is. There's like 15 of them. So that's kind of how to track and see where the money's flowing. And if you're like a day trader as well, you can also look at those large caps lists because I guarantee you the small caps in those sectors are also going to have volume.
Uh-huh.
And that's how I kind of like narrow down my watch list from there.
Okay.
So, you don't never want to be in a sector that's not ripping, especially when you trade options because you'll get theta killed out. I've been there many times.
And theta is time decay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Theta,
all right.
yeah.
I'm learning stuff.
Okay, good rule about theta, right? If you're trading weeklies, you can only buy them on Mondays and Tuesdays, okay? Because
Okay.
Wednesday in the option world is known as theta kill day. You'll notice on Wednesdays your options just magically just keep going down and you have no idea why. It's just that's when the theta really starts to kick up as you get closer to Fridays.
Uh-huh.
Also, never overnight like a weekly on a 4-day week. On a 4-day weekend. Dude,
Okay.
it's literally the worst because, like, say the stock market's closed on Monday. When you come back Tuesday, Theta is going to literally take your contract and shake it and punch it and beat it up. So that's another pro tip.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm learning a lot here. Learning a lot. Another question I've always wanted to ask but been too embarrassed is how do you let's say you happen to have a Webull account and you're
Yep.
trading options. How do you set a stop loss?
So that's the thing with options, right? People always like, is it a percentage? It's key levels, right? So I'll take a trade. People know me as the option phone trapper, as I trade options through my phone 99% of the time, unless some days I work from home, but normally it's through my phone. So I'll set price alerts, right? So I'll set a price alert for my support, and I'll set a price alert for like my targets, certain resistances, and stuff like that. And once you get closes below certain levels, then you can cut it for a loss. It's never a percent, right? Because there's all these Greek letters that I don't even know what they mean that can cause your option to kind of it'll hit your stop loss, but it didn't break a key level, and then it'll start ripping again. So I just use key levels. Support, resistance, maybe a trend line or two, but I don't overcomplicate it anymore. Any more than that.
Okay.
But that's the thing it's more of a mind game, right? So I had what did I say? Oh, I had Apple calls today, and they had an event today at 1 p.m. Eastern, I believe it was. So I know historically.
Oh, they did. Yeah. They got a new iPad.
Yeah. So Apple normally runs up to these events. So I loaded a bunch of calls on Friday. I was down like 30%. Everyone's like messaging me like, "Oh, like are you still holding?" I'm like, "Yeah, didn't break a key level. It's just like a Friday red candle." Every Friday, especially on OPEX, is when people sell their contracts. So you'll get a lot of choppy action. It doesn't mean like your trade's broken. It's just the last 10 minutes of the day, things get a little weird. And then today, it started off red, and I was like, they're going to buy this up. I use something called Whale Stream. I don't know if you ever heard of it. The dev reached out to me like 2 weeks ago, and it has been absolutely amazing. So highly recommend you check it out. And so
Whale Streams? What is it?
It's an option like flow kind of dashboard, right?
Ooh,
but it's
very
cool because, dude, it sends you text alerts of like what you're watching. So like I don't even have to sit in front of my computer. It'll text me like, "Hey, like here's unusual volume and option activity on these tickers." It's awesome. So I got a text alert today for it. It was insane. So I'll check that, make sure it's bullish, the sentiment's bullish, and just let the trade work. That's the biggest thing. You got to be disciplined in options because I see people like, "Oh, I'm down 5%." Like 5% on options, nothing, right? Like pennies compared to what, like, no, penny stock, you're down 5%. It gets a little sketchy, but options,
Sure.
5% losses every day.
Right. No, but penny stocks, they should really bounce.
Yeah. Actually, IWM is going to break out soon. Get ready, though.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that stock
like,
you're holding that's down like 30%, totally gonna bounce, dude.
I know that's such a pet peeve of mine. Like it should bounce here. It should bounce. Like
Oh my god.
how? I
RSI
mean,
is 14, it's gonna bounce. Like I've never looked at RSI in my entire life. Like it's easiest indicator to understand. That's why I don't use it. I had a guy once tell me that he's like, "Oh, it's oversold on the 1 minute chart." I was like,
what?
"Okay, I can't help you. There's no help for you. There's no help for you."
You should have just like DM'd him that huge file of things that he could
My nothing bothers me more than when someone's a swing trader, right? Like I swing penny stocks. I don't day trade them, right? And they're like, "Yo, tweezer bottom on the 3 minute," and I'm like, I'll look at them and I'll be like, "Why are you looking at the 3 minute chart on your swing? Right? You're looking at the daily time frame. It takes days to happen." Okay, like, and then they're like, "Oh, it stopped me out because it had a 3 minute close below the 20 SMA." And I'm like, what? I know you're laughing because you probably did that yourself at some point.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like how pissed Ariel is at me all the time. Like we recently just traded Hut and he was like, "Yep, I'm in from like whatever it was." And I was like, "Okay." And I like traded in and out of the stock like 5 times that day. And I was like, I'm so red. And he was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, well, it closed below the 20.
Yeah.
Like, no, Blaine, the stop is low of day.
Yeah.
I was like, well, but I wanted to be safe. I mean, I'm sure I'd drive him up the wall.
That stuff, it's all about just kind of the being in the game for a while and reading how things actually work. It's experience.
Like, he also trades on. So I am like a 5-minute girl, and he just trades on like the biggest time frame. Like he'll do like 1 hour, 4 hours, daily. He's just chilling and like rolling J's and he's fine.
But you know why, right? Because
it like takes his hands away from trading. It makes him more patient. All great things that I'm totally here for.
I was talking about the chart, not the joints. Well, no, the higher the time frame, the more likely, the higher the conviction, right? That's it. It's very simple. Like if I'm playing a weekly breakout, I'm going to wait weeks until I'm rich. I'm not going to look at the 1 hour and be like, "Oh, broke the 1 hour like pattern." Like that's cool, but like the higher the time frame, the higher the conviction. If it's a daily play, like you're basing off a daily chart, you're going to wait. You're going to use a 4 hour time frame maybe as your stop. Maybe. And the moment I realized that is when I started having more winners and less losers, right? I was letting my stocks run more. Yeah. Instead of like, I'm not going to swing a stock for a 6% gain. I can get a 6% gain scalping like VIX calls. Like and people just don't really understand that.
I think that's something that has to come with time. As someone who has, I mean, I didn't just start.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. But that's teaching that to someone who's just opened up their Robinhood and looking at those line graphs. Like that's just not gonna click. And singles and doubles, and I talked about that so much. Like you have to kind of meet someone where they are on their journey and then tell them things that they might not understand for like a long time. Like I think he said you can tell somebody something 10 times, but it might be the 11th time that they're like ready to hear it.
I agree. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the old you can lead a horse to water, can't make it drink situation.
It has to click for you when it's your time, right? That's
right.
Like for me, I'm trying to think what was my moment where I realized that I knew what I was doing. Like I always think back, like what was the biggest turning point in my trading journey? Because when I first started, I was getting slaughtered. Like I mean, like I was really good during COVID because I like would just bet on earnings plays because I was like, oh, dude, Chegg. I used Chegg in college. I'm gonna go all in for earnings. It gaps up 30%, and my contracts go a couple 1,000%. You know, so it's really easy, but you have to just trust your abilities, right? It's all in having confidence in yourself. It is just a giant game. It's like a giant mind game.
Totally.
Because every time you sell, someone thinks you're an idiot for selling. Every time you buy, someone thinks you're an idiot for buying.
Yep.
And once you kind of understand that, just gotta. Warren Buffett says it best on Twitter. You just gotta trust, man. You just gotta trust. That's it. Trust the chart. I see so many people who they'll have an A plus setup, and I'll join it with them, and they're like, oh, I'm out. I'm like, why? The move hasn't even happened yet. We're just getting started, baby. I'm gonna add more. It's about we're about to get yachts, man. You're selling for 5%. Come on, But that's another thing, right? Is when you take people's alerts, you don't see the same thing they do, no matter what. My buddies will send me plays, and I'm like, oh, I like it, but it's not necessarily my setup. So I'm going in a little bit shaky because I didn't find the play organically.
Yep. Good God. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I was a part of all sorts of paid discords and all that kind of stuff when I first started. I did it all. And I actually, the day I became super profitable and actually consistent was the day I left all of them.
Did you know, I said on Twitter, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I recently took a week off of Twitter and Discord so that I would just have to find my own plays and couldn't be influenced.
That's the best way to do it. I know guys have been doing that for 15 years. Yeah, exactly. Because you don't have all the noise and the FOMO and the hype. And that's the biggest killer is people the stock is ripping. And you're just sitting there, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to scalp it for a couple thousand shares. And you get clapped, because you don't want to miss out.
I'm really bad on if I'm already in a stock and then someone that I trust and respect, it then gets in, I will triple my position size.
Yeah.
And then just get screwed. Just so screwed every time. And it's oh, if you had stuck with the trade that you were trading, that you saw, you would have been freaking fine. But I just can't trust I have a problem.
What was that first rule I said? It's called confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't. You got to stick to your rules. Even today, there's so many breakouts going on. And my thing for options is never more than 5% of my account. I will not break it because once I break it once, I'm going to break it twice. And then it's going to become 25% of my account.
Yeah.
And I just stay in my own lane. I'm not the type, I'll show percentage gains, but I see some of these people posting massive gains. And that's not normal for an average person.
Speaking of your rules, thank you so much for bringing us back.
Of course.
That's usually Justin's job. Let's go ahead and finish this.
Okay. So we're on number 4. So if a stock is going to the moon, you should be paying yourself along the trip, right? Does an astronaut get a paycheck when he's flying to space?
Probably before.
Before, during, and after, right?
Right.
So I would say that if it's going to the moon, scale out and always leave lotto shares. If your average share size, you have a small account, you're buying 100 shares, leave 5 because those lottos that actually work, that go crazy, will really help you start compounding.
Yeah.
Now, number 5, plays that have zero noise have the best success rate.
Totally.
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 I don't even tweet some penny stocks because I know that it's going to get all messed up once I start talking about it.
Totally. Or just those little really quiet moments of I found this trade and I'm just going to trade it.
Yep. I'm just going to let it do its thing.
I'm not going to talk to anyone about it or whatever. Those are nice, quiet, peaceful, happy moments.
You'd be surprised. One thing I learned from my mentors, a lot of these big guys who trade have all these small little plays that they don't talk about.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Trust me. I'm in some of them. There's a lot of small little plays that they don't really talk about. That just these base hits, when you get those 10, 15% swing plays the overnight. Yeah, you'd be amazed of how many, especially on Twitter, people think that everyone posts all their plays. It's not the case.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I tell you, I've been around for a long time. I know a lot of the big guys, and this is what they tell me, and I see how they kind of move, and I kind of mimic that.
That's very cool. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. Trust me. There's some guys out there who have 50 swing positions at once, but you only hear about one of them. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Oh, yeah. I mean, Momo traders, no, because Momo is Momo, but swing traders, oh yeah. Dude, I was swinging some like, I don't even know what kind of stock it was. I honestly don't even know what they did. And it had like maybe 40K volume a day. And I had like a little small position and it went like 50%. Didn't tweet about it. I don't even remember the ticker name. And it just went. Like no one talked about it on Twitter. I sold out and I was like, okay.
Yeah, those are so great. I like sometimes I'll talk to Ariel at the end of the day and we will have both like played the same thing independently, which makes me feel very proud. But
You should be.
yeah. But I mean, they're just like it's just like an EMA rider that's just very quiet and just
Yep.
doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And God, those are great.
Yeah, he uses the 10 EMA and I use the 8. So our setup's in
I use the
intraday.
9. We should all start a club.
But that's another thing is like the 8 EMA, right? Just like if you're really new, just if it's a 5 minute keeps closing on the 5 minute above the 8, just let it ride. Put trailing stops in, just let it go.
Yep.
I use trailers all the time, like all the time. So this is again, here's another one. Another rule. Before you hit buy, you should tell me where you're going to sell. So every time I buy a swing trade, I put my sells in immediately. I know exactly where I'm going to scale out. Every time.
Really?
And then I'll be like, I'll wake up in the morning, like I should have got up for work like 3 hours ago, but whatever. And I'll be like, oh, I got a couple sells on my phone. Hey, my trade works itself out because a lot of people are trying to watch their swings all day and time the top. I'm like, no, my risk reward. I'm risking 5%. I need to make at least 15-20%. Simple.
I mean, you say that's simple. That's a hard concept.
Not really. It's
I
support resistance. I know. I always say it's like, guys, it's really that simple. And people are like, dude, like, I think I've mastered like the emotions behind it, right? I've had so many like really bad days that like a bad day now is like nothing compared to where it used to be.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I've had days where I was like, shit.
Yes. Yes. A bad day can quickly turn into a horrible day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's just sort of like, if you even get close to a bad day, it's just going to go downhill, at least for me. It's just not great.
But guess what? This ties into my next rule. Sometimes the best trade is no trade, right? If the VIX is at 25, right? We're nearing an absolute collapse of the economy when the VIX is at 25. Why are you buying calls? Like, I trust me, I've done it before. I'm like, this has to bounce, and it just keeps going lower.
Sure.
And when the VIX is super high, your contracts are more expensive. So your SPY call that's normally 40 cents is now $400. Well, $4. It's in hundreds, but yeah, I've seen it many times. So there's many days. There used to be a time where I had to be in every single play all the time.
Yeah.
I couldn't miss one. Now it's like, all right, I missed this one. Whatever, I'll get the next time. Breakouts normally retest. I'll buy the retest and we'll go back up.
Totally. Like, being able to say no is like a superpower.
It really is, especially now. Like once we start heating up the penny market, penny markets historically we'll get low float runners towards the end of this month, and they go nutty. Like they get like you'll wake up to like a 300% ripper on no news, like no news at all. Maybe like they probably filed an offering and it just starts going crazy.
Listen, I hear you. If you could make that happen, it would make everyone in MTA freaking giddy, like Christmas came.
That's the thing. Right now, Momo's not the way. But I remember, I'm like, I forget. There was a stock called MDLY. I remember I bought like I bought like a ton of shares. I was like, it was pretty high conviction, and I'm out to the bar like getting dinner or whatever, like hanging out, and like people are like messaging me like, "Yo, check your phone, check." Dude, it's up like 150% on literally nothing. Like, and I overnighted it full. I was like, I'm just gonna overnight this. I mean, it's up on nothing. It's gonna go even higher on absolutely nothing. And I remember waking up at 4 a.m. going, "Wow, I just made 3 months' salary at 4 a.m. doing nothing." It's
so
crazy.
If you're waking up at 4 a.m., do you trade on Webull?
Yeah. I recommend Webull just because of the 4 a.m. gappers. It'll ruin your sleep schedule for sure.
Sure.
But yeah, so I used to use Thinkorswim because I was trading futures for like a solid 6 months, and then I left Thinkorswim to go to, it's called TraderBait. It's another futures platform, and you just get better margins and less fees. So I was doing that. I was trading futures almost all summer, which is a lot of fun. But not when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're waiting for China to open or close or whatever, and you're trying to scalp it for a few $100. So
We have a really good futures trader that's coming on, I think, next week. His name's Chathan.
those guys they're a different breed. I thought options guys are nutty, and no, futures guys absolutely nutty.
Yeah, he's awesome. He knows so much about so much.
You have to be very, very well versed in like every market. It's not just the United States market.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right. Do we have more rules?
Oh, yeah, we got a couple more. I'll go through them quick. 8.
All right.
Do your own studying, ask detailed questions, and you'll get a detailed response. Asking me, all caps, you in, bro, will get a reply 99% of the time. So that's how I met like a lot of my mentees. Like they would actually send me charts, and I would tell them what I was looking at. And now some of them are making more money than me, you know?
Yeah, that's been such a theme on the podcast. It really started or like hit home for me on the Making Sales episode of like, if you show someone you are trying, they will help you.
Absolutely.
And like ask good questions and just show up and try to learn. It was really hard for me to ask questions in the beginning. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or I'm old or what it was, but I just did not want to look stupid.
I will say though, seeing all the women get into the finance space. So I was raised by a single mom who like doesn't really know anything about stocks, but seeing women like really take it over and like step up, kudos to you guys. I mean, it's been a male dominated thing since forever.
Totally.
So
I think it's awesome.
I think it's awesome too, because like even like my lady, she's like, hey, like I want to buy some Lululemon stock. I'm like, yeah, I'll get it for you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
She texted me like 2 weeks ago. She's like, yo, I'm like, what's up? She didn't actually say that. I'm translating. She's like, there's this new IPO out. It's women's hair shampoo. It's called OLPX. She's like, you got to buy it.
Oh, Olaplex.
Olaplex, yeah.
Olaplex, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, you got to buy it. I'm like, my lady's texting me about stocks right now. Like, this is
like, life is good.
But it's cool because like before, like it was almost like, I don't want to say frowned upon, but like women in finance was not like a thing.
Totally.
And now women are coming in just like taking names later, beating people up, you know, not actually, but it's cool because that's how it should be. I'm very much that type of person. I mean, that's how I was raised. Single mom gang, you know. So.
Yeah, I divorced parents. My mom owns a company and is a total badass, and it's a nice thing to see in a mother figure.
Absolutely. My great grandmother, she worked at Tasty Cake. And this was before like women were supposed to be like stay-at-home moms. And she was like, nope, I'm going to work every single day. And they were the richest people in the neighborhood because both of them worked.
Yep.
And people like would like shun her for that. And like I remember she unfortunately she passed away, but she was like 103 years old, still driving a car around, going to the casino, like dude, badass. Like
Did
crazy.
You know that my mom and I went to to the opening bell of
I did see that.
Yeah. And she's so supportive of like me and this podcast, and there's like day trading penny stocks. I already said it's scary and risky and all kind of stuff, and she's really been so supportive.
Moms will always be your number one fan no matter what.
Totally.
I mean, I told my mom, she's like, you're a degenerate gambler, stop. And I'm like, no, trust me. She's like, look, I believe in you. She's like, just don't ruin your life. And I was like, okay. Very simple rules.
Well, I'm giving shout outs to my mom. I'd also like to give some major shout outs to my stepmother, who has really been supportive of this podcast since day one and has done so much to help us. So Justin, my co-host, is married to my stepsister, and my stepmother has just like been so supportive, and it's so nice to just have women support you.
I 100% agree. I remember, so my grandfather actually supports me. Fun fact, when I first like ever had like published like audio of me, he called me. He's like 80 years old. By the way, 80 years old, still works full time. Like he gets mad when his work pays him. Like he's just a G. Like he's the coolest guy ever. He calls me Spike, right? He calls me, he's like, yo, Spike. I'm like, yo, what's up, Pop? He's like, man, they tried to pay me today. I'm like, well, yeah, you went to work. Like, he's like, nah, man, I'm just there helping out for free lunch. I'm like, okay. But he used to trade options through a like old like dial-up phone.
Nice.
How about that? Yeah, so he would tell me about it, and he was also one of the first like group of investors. I don't want to say investors, I guess retail investors of the Nasdaq, of the QQQ. And I love telling this story because my grandfather didn't graduate high school. No, didn't even graduate middle school, right? Started his own business like savage. And he bought the NASDAQ because he was always really insecure about not knowing about computers. So he said, screw it. This NASDAQ's all computer companies. I don't understand it. So most people that are way more wealthy than me understand it. So I'm just going to buy it. Bang. There you go. That's his retirement. How crazy is that?
I mean, that was lucky.
I guess you could say that. But he's very, very well read. He reads the Wall Street Journal every morning. Business owner, like, but it's just funny. I remember him telling me that. He's calling me. He's like, yeah, I used to trade options. I'm like, how'd you do that back in the day? He's like, they send you like a booklet, and like you get to pick which ones you want. And it was kind of a pain because like there wasn't a lot of liquidity like there is now with the internet exchanges.
Yeah, my dad was a stockbroker growing up too.
There you go.
Yeah,
so you're natural. What do you mean? What do you need us?
He tried to explain stocks to me probably 100 times, and I was like, "Yeah, it's gambling." And he was like, "It's not gambling. It's not gambling." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I get it. It's just like gambling." Like we like, kept having that fight.
It's assets,
I don't
right?
think it's like gambling anymore, but
day trading is a little gambly. It is a little.
I mean, potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as long as you're not going, as Ariel likes to say, full port.
Sure.
I remember he said that on the ESQ thing. That had me laughing so hard because I've seen his screenshots. It's like, dude, like you literally have like 3 mortgages in like DraftKings. Like, it's like,
I asked him when we first started talking. He said he was going to buy something or whatever, and I was like, "Are you full porting this?" And he was like, "No. If I full ported this, I would like break the stock."
Yeah,
and I was like,
that's another
shit.
thing too. When you start to, you'd be surprised. Like if it's a low volume stock and you dump on the bid after hours, like you could really send the stock down. Like even if you have 1,000 shares and you have a small account and you just dump right on the bid, like the stock could go down like 10% after hours, and you're just going to create like a spiraling motion, right?
Yeah.
It's so crazy, like how many little things affect everything. All right, I got 3 more rules. All right,
let's hit them.
These are quick. So number 9 is stocks can always go much lower than you expect and much, much higher. Number 10 is chart is always more important than the furu. Okay? The reason I came up with this rule was because of, I think it was CEI, pretty sure.
Okay.
Not CEI. DATS, right?
Okay.
DATS came out
same.
Yeah, DATS came out with that Barstool partnership. And the chart had like a little bit of a bearish chart, meaning it was just going to pull back because it's overextended. I wasn't short. I don't short stocks. I personally, because I have a cash account. I do have a margin account, but I use that for spreads only.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember like I tweeted at like 6 a.m. I'm like, they partnered with Barstool. They paid them money for advertising, and I got like so much hate for it, like ungodly amount of hate. I learned my lesson on that one, and I was just trying to help people. Like, hey, like this is not what you think it is. Like they just spent $3 million in advertising. The chart's a little bit bearish, and then sure enough, halt down right off open, like blood in the streets, people crying and screaming. And just because someone tweets out like we're going to 100 or we're going to 1,000, whatever, you gotta look at the chart, right? They are in it. Most people who have a big following are in a position where they have the capital that they can hold through it, right?
Yes.
Like if you can have a couple million shares, you have a $50 million account, you can handle a few dips. Now, if you have like a $5,000 account, you can't handle a $5 share like collapse, right? So it went to 16 to 11. Like that is a big percentage that you're risking. And I see people on Twitter like, buy the dip, like we're going back. I'm like, people just lost a lot of money and there's a lot of emotions involved. And it, to me, I will never be that type of person to like almost put like hope into them, right? It's not a hope game.
Yeah.
It's a ruthless game. And that's why I came up with that rule. And lastly, the most important one, if you're struggling, size down.
Really
right?
good rule.
It's so like me, like I've been on a hot streak for like 6 weeks. So like, and guess what? Guess how much more size I've added?
I would think you would size up if you're on a hot streak.
Nope, I keep the same sizing because that's my rule, right? Like,
Interesting.
because what happens is what's happened previously is when I size up, that's when I start getting smoked again, right? Because I get bold. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hold this a little bit longer. Like
Sure.
I start to kind of finesse what I've drilled into my brain over the last couple of years. So I keep the same amount, and I keep my count at a certain amount, and I withdraw every week, and I
Mm-hmm.
buy long-term investments with it. Call me
Oh,
crazy,
that's what
but
the Wolf of Weed Street
yeah,
does.
yeah, because
Yep.
it's awesome. Because I bought 100 AMD shares, and I'm up $17 a share, and I don't have to do anything. Like,
Yep. I had him on the podcast recently too because I listen to him on PGIR
yep,
and he does that. Pays himself every week and then takes a certain amount out and puts into like blue chip
yep,
really good investments to hold. And I was like,
yep,
"Oh, that's how you do it."
yeah. Well,
Like you're
that's
not going to scalp pennies for the rest of your life.
no,
Lame.
and it's exactly, yeah. Like that's what I'm saying. Like you'd be amazed of if you put in $500 a month into a long term investment account, how much that'll grow. Right. Last year, I think my account netted like 175% return on my long term.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
and
last year was 2020. Is that
exactly everything went to the moon. So
yeah.
I just kept buying and buying and buying. I own Snapchat. I have 100 shares of Snapchat at $6. It's 80. It's almost 80
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm
That's
saying.
amazing.
And guess how much charting I did for that?
Well, I would think for me, if I was going to buy a long-term investment, I probably wouldn't look at the chart very much. Like just like your girlfriend, like
Yep.
Olaplex is a great company
Yep.
and it does a lot for women. Like that's something that I'd want to hold. And if,
Exactly.
wherever I got in, it would be sort of
And
fun.
female stocks, Reddit came up with a term. It's called the Becky Index, right? Or like the basic white girl index.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, I know it's a little derogatory, I understand, but there is a lesson behind this. The Becky Index outperforms the S&P 500 every year by like 30%.
Stop.
Yep. And it's like Starbucks, Ulta, Lululemon, whatever brand that Nordstrom's owned by some conglomerate. Yeah, 30%.
Huh.
Yeah. But again, women make majority of the purchasing decisions. Like I know in my household, my mom has that shit on lock. like,
Yeah.
like she makes all the decisions. But that's the thing. Like Starbucks, another great company. I bought Starbucks in like the 70s. Now it's like a couple hundred. It's like 100 something. Pays dividends too, so it pays me to own it. It's literally like a cheat code, right?
I feel like this is the type of thing that, like, in Discord or on Twitter, someone would retweet this and be like, "This is the way."
Yeah, I tried. I tried to teach people. I just seen some of this conversations I had in Sapphire. People like if some people would think I was like ripping them apart, but in reality, I was just like, hey, like if you want to make it, this is what you have to do, right? Like I see kids who are like just thinking full porting 50% and like a weekly option. I'm like, and I literally like, I like to tell people all the time, like I will fly to you with the money I make today. I'll catch a flight. I'll come there and I'll smack you across the face. That's what's gonna take for you to learn.
Yeah.
I wrote so many like lesson plans. They're still in there, and people can look them up. And the whole a good example is the Ghetto Spread. Do you know what the Ghetto Spread is?
No.
It's an option strategy that you can use when you're on a margin account and under PVT, right? So I have my
Okay.
buddy, his name's Big Block on Twitter. He just made a Twitter because he's up like 10,000% in like 3 weeks doing the strategy.
This
So
strategy you're about
this
to tell us.
it's called the Ghetto Spread. It's actually invented by a YouTuber named the Trading Fraternity. So basically,
Okay.
you buy an option, okay, and it
Okay.
goes up. Let's say, just make it simple, 50%. You sell an option against it, right? Same, different strike, but same expiration date. So what happens is you get paid because you're selling the option, right? And you're already in the profit. So let's say the contract is 100. You buy for $100. You sell the next strike for $150. Okay, so you already
Okay.
pocket $50.
Okay.
And then you have the spread, which, if you're right on your analysis, will also keep going up. And it doesn't count as a pattern day trade. It doesn't count as a day trade. I know it just blew your
I'm
mind. It's a little
really
complicated.
kind of lost. This reminds me of when Justin was trying to explain covered calls to me.
Yeah, it's very similar, but he only trades SPY. He's my buddy from college, and it's absolutely incredible what he done. So I know he's gonna listen to this too, so I want to give him a shout out. But yeah, he puts like he has $1,000 on his Robinhood every week. He only trades SPY. He uses different levels, different patterns, just like pre-market highs, pre-market lows, previous day lows and highs, and he just trades the range. He buys at the money calls, and they go into money. He does a ghetto spread, no day trade, collects the money. He's automatically in a profit, so he just lets it ride. It's insane. Absolutely insane what he's done.
I feel like we should link this YouTube video. I'm certain people will be interested.
I have a video on my Twitter feed that I did. I literally put money into my Robinhood, and I forget what trade it was. I put like $300 or $500 in my Robinhood or something like that just to teach people this method. I told people on Sapphire, I was like, I will sacrifice my own money to teach you guys how to do this. I mean, the easiest way is just get a cash account. You don't have to worry about it, but people are they like the Robinhood look and feel. So
sure, I do a significant amount of my options trades on Robinhood.
It's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. I like Robinhood for spreads. I used to trade a lot of spreads on there, like butterflies, debit spreads. I don't do credit spreads, calendar spreads, like everything. I was really big in the spreads for like almost a year, but now I don't really do them as much. I don't know why, because they're a lot safer and a higher chance of profitability. But explaining to someone what a butterfly is, good luck. you know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I can't even really explain it in layman's terms, but the only problem with them is there's a slight assignment risk. So if you don't do it right, you can get mega clapped, as we like to call it in the option world.
Also don't know.
Mega clap means like you get like assigned and you owe Robinhood like thousands and thousands of dollars because you made a misclick.
Oh my god.
Yeah. There's a story just came out like a couple days ago about some kid who his $90 spread turned into him owing $60,000.
I mean, at which point you just go jump off a bridge. Like, what do you do?
And again, if you're using one of these not necessarily the best brokers like Robinhood, you're going to call customer service and they're going to give you Robinhood Premium, which is a $5 a month value. And that's it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I have a Robinhood and a Webull and a Thinkorswim.
So what do you normally trade on?
I only trade, like, I day trade stocks. That is what I do. And I use Thinkorswim for that. That's my, like, bread and butter. I have Robinhood because I started with Robinhood. So I have some Bitcoin in my Robinhood.
Ah, there you go.
And then I also am obsessed with CCL. I talk about it all the time. It's my favorite stock. And
the Carnival Cruise Line?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And so I will trade options on CCL. It's like my only, like, I like CCL options. So
now,
I
are
do
you
that in
profitable with
Robinhood. Well, yeah, usually. So do you know who Happy Gilmore is?
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Yes. I love Happy. He's been on the podcast twice. Basically, I just say to him, like, hey, Happy, I think CCL looks good. Like, I want to buy some calls. And then he tells me what to buy. And then I buy them. And we, it always works out good. Works out well. But so now I joined Shark's Room so I could learn how to be better at options. And I do that kind of options trading in Webull.
You want to hear a little fun fact about Shark?
Yeah.
He taught me what a Head and Shoulders was.
Oh my goodness. Way to tie it back to Happy. Did you know that a Head and Shoulders pattern is 83% successful at what it's supposed to do?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I have all those statistics.
Yeah. I love that statistic.
Bull flags are like 30, 35%, right? Yeah. Pennants, I think, are 50 or 60, maybe more, pending.
Yeah, but Head and Shoulders are like the most successful.
Yeah.
Head and Shoulders, inverse Head and Shoulders, same.
Well, I like cup and handles. I used to hate cup and handles. It used to be like a weird pet peeve I had. I'd be
Me
like,
too.
no, it's not a cup and handle. It's a bull flag. People are like, no, this is a cup and handle.
Oh
Now,
my God. Wait, we're like pet peeve twins. I have
yeah,
said on this podcast, like freaking cup and handle, like it's so subjective. Like
yep,
anyone can freaking call a cup and handle, and
yep.
it can be like freaking any. It's all things to all people. It's the stupidest thing. And then like
Bro, that's exactly how I feel. Like literally exactly. Oh, I
it,
can't
I've
stand
like
it.
come kind of back around to it of like, oh, a cup and handle. Like I don't know. I'm not as pissed about it as I used to be, but I used to be irate about a cup
Oh,
and
dude,
handle.
I used to be the same way. It used to trigger me, but now I like I mentioned before, I'm in a Discord with it's like 10 or 20 of us, and these guys have been trading without social media for over a decade, and they love cup and handles. So,
I also like to call them cup and handies just because I'm a 12-year-old child.
hey, you gotta do hey whatever sticks in your mind, so you remember it. You know,
Sure.
I
All
just
right.
grew up like a year ago, so it's okay.
Happy wanted me to ask you what you think is the sexiest chart pattern.
Pennants by far.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, big pennant, like downtrend break on like a weekly time frame. Love any
Okay.
weekly pennant. I'm all over it. I will load tons of it. Yeah, weekly
Ooh.
pennants. I would say. I like also for penny stocks. I like 52 week bottom out pennies on the 20 SMA. Mitch will tell you all about them when he talks, but that's my setup.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I like pennants and weekly bull flags too. Yeah, weekly bull flags are the easiest trade for a newer option trader.
I think that Esk likes high flag breaks. Maybe is that I might not be saying that right. Who
Mm,
knows? Yeah.
probably a consolidation of like all time highs breaks, right? Something in that matter. All time high
Yeah.
breakouts are literally my favorite too because the stock can just go and go. There's no resistance. It just rocket ship up like Elon Musk like powering the motors. It just keeps going.
I love that in 2020 so much. Like a good high of daybreak, I would always
Oh,
slap and then just like ride it. You slap a high of daybreak now, you're going to get really screwed.
oh yeah. And then there's gonna be like a 50,000 ass right there waiting for you, and you're just gonna get
Yeah.
smoked.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Now
can't do that
nowadays
anymore.
I've learned better that that's my ask there. So that's a big thing too. It's like I remember one time me and my buddy Barn. I'm like, yo, Barn, there's like a 25K ask here. He's like, oh yeah, man, that's crazy. I'm like, you scumbag, this is you. He's like, yeah, bro, I just sold into you. I'm like, oh, come on. But when you get good and you kind of learn that language, it's just funny because like there's so much different stuff you'll see.
Well, I have this has been awesome. I've kept you on a little long because I've enjoyed talking to you and I've learned so much. Is there anything that you wanted to say that I did not ask you?
Um, the biggest thing I would say is like reach out if you ever have questions. I'm here to help. My biggest thing is I really want to give back to the community because they help me, and I want everyone to have a little bit of like control of their own financial freedom. I come from absolutely nothing. Like I went to school, like I worked my ass off to get where I am today, and I know there's someone out there right now that's been in the same struggle as I have, and just know that there is a way out, and you can do this. You just gotta. I always say you gotta blow one account to have nothing, and it's the only way you're gonna go up.
So you think there's an account blow up in my future?
No, because you're very disciplined and you're surrounded by some of the greatest. Me, I was not disciplined, but when I had nothing and that feeling of losing all that money, like I just started working like full time and I finally had some dollars to my name, and that feeling of losing that much money in one day, I will never forget for the rest of my life. And I studied my ass off. I met the right people. And now my mentors, they come and ask me questions about options and certain penny stocks. And it just makes my day knowing that like they trust me. They trust my input now. It's not just me asking them like, hey, what do you get next? So
Yeah. Brad Mullins, who is my like number one mentor, always says that hit the greatest feeling ever is when he's taught someone to trade and then they point out something that he didn't see. And
Yep.
like, it's something that he would have seen if he'd been looking at it.
I
I like
100%
that.
agree. Nothing. I tweeted this the other day. Nothing makes me more happy than seeing someone that I taught bank big. It just it's I'm almost addicted to that feeling. I have this guy who like I swear he like hacked my computer. I called him out on Twitter today because he's like rolling to the same strikes as me. Like he's doing everything I'm doing, and I'm like getting kind of annoyed. I'm like, dude, you're stealing my swagger, you know. But yeah, that's the biggest thing, and always give back, right? Like always give back. Don't have an ego. You'll notice the big guys don't like the real traders, the real guys who've been through it. They don't have an ego. And,
Totally.
And I think that egos kills accounts every time.
You know who doesn't have an ego is singles and doubles.
No.
That guy.
No.
Is
He's
he
lifeless
human?
when he trades. Yeah, no. But that's why I wanted to leave it on. And, always reach out to me for questions. I'm in between Discords right now, but you just DM me on Twitter. I answer everything. If you have a good question, I'll talk to you.
I hope you're saying that to me because now that I've already on this episode asked you all the stupidest questions that I have, I feel like maybe I could ask more intelligent ones.
Absolutely.
Expect a lot of DMs from me.
I've told people who've don't even have like no idea what the stock market is or how to trade. Like people who are like physical trainers who don't know anything about stocks, like are now banking like, yo, I just bought this all-time high breakout. I'm like, I missed that. Why don't you message me and tell me that? like come on, man. I could need one of those today. I'm down, you know?
Totally. So right now I'm in MTA. You are in between Discords.
Yeah, so Sapphire will always be my home. But right now, I mean, I'm so busy all the time. Like I can't answer every single ping I would get. So right now, I mean, my main place is Twitter. I hang out there. I hang out in Sapphire too. I've been there for like forever. That'll forever be what made me who I am today. Shout out to Ultra, Mitch Picks, Bullish Trades, King Bio, Singles and Doubles. He's an OG there too. Who else? Kenny Powers. He's become my good buddy.
Kenny.
Shout out to Barn Animal. Who else? Bull Dave. Oh my God, who's the other person I'm missing? Oh, Stocks with Flav. He became my new buddy. And also the Precision Trading guys, run by Rob Trades. Solid group over there too. It's just a great community, man. Find where you fit in. You'll find something, and you got it.
Totally. All right, well, I hope you'll come back. This was delightful. We've gone so over our time, and I enjoyed all of it.
I am a social creature. I'll just say that. I warned you before you got me on, but thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing, and you have the best guest. You're starting to take over the world, so keep it up.
Thank you. I do have the best guest. I really do. Thanks for being one of them.
Of course.
We'll see you soon. Thank you to our producer Joel Edwards and Chesley Lowe for our banjo music.
By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the Penny Lane Podcast makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional or financial advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, the Penny Lane Podcast does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. The third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of the Penny Lane Podcast. The Penny Lane Podcast assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast, or the compliance with applicable laws of such materials and/or links referenced herein.